Hi, my name is Laura Willing, and I'm going to talk a little about first sessions with couples, and I have some notes for that too. So, in first sessions with couples, especially for associates, I really recommend taking charge of the session. You don't really want to get like interviewed and have them like questioning you, like, what can you really do? What's your experience? How many years have you been doing this? You just want to jump right into being useful to them and doing work so that they feel like you're engaged and something's going to happen. Um, in general, in therapy, your role is to help them hear each other. You're not there to fix the problem. You're not there to like help them decide if they want to be there to be together or not. You're not there to like to figure out who's right or who's wrong. It's really your role just to help them hear each other, help them make sure that they're being heard by their partner and that they feel like they're being heard. In general, I think process work is really important for this and with individuals. And process work is like sort of how do upsets happen? What kinds of triggers um, cause what kinds of reactions instead of the content of their latest fight or the content of um, the content of the story of what happened that was so upsetting. See if you can help them think in terms of patterns, like and in EFT and Sue Johnson's work, they talk about this as like as the dance of intimacy, of um, like when I feel hurt, I might retreat, but what I really want is for you to like come toward me and reassure me or show me that you want me or whatever. So like looking for those kind of patterns and helping them see those. Um, with couples, I usually begin sessions with a little check-in and much more than I do that with individuals. And I'm not sure why I've gotten into that mode, but um, I one of the things I want to accomplish is kind of putting people in the headspace to like to check in about how they're feeling in their relationship and how they've been showing up for their relationship. Um, and and part of that I think is trying to take them out of the headspace of like what went wrong this week, or what do they want to complain about. But instead, I do a little check-in that's like, just noticing your body and how are you doing as a whole complete adult, and um and how have you been showing up for your relationship this week? How have you felt heard and supported this week? Excuse me. um and how do you want to show up for this session? Who do you want to be today for this session? And I cater that a little bit to like what kinds of things the couples work on, right? Like some couples you could tell that they kind of like rushed to get there. It's hard for them to make the time for it. They're like probably still thinking about work or whatever. And then, in those cases, I might really focus on the slowness part, the slowing down process of like, and I might say, there's no place else you need to be, there's nothing else you need to do. And then I'll have them each check in um, with us and and hoping that they answer those questions about how they're feeling in their relationship, how they've been showing up, what have they been doing differently, and um, and that can be really fruitful. I have at times actually had each of them sort of guess how the other one's doing. Any of those where one partner kind of speaks how they think the other one is doing, I think the benefit of that is that you get to have this feeling like, oh, my partner's actually paying attention. Oh, they kind of had that right, or they didn't. But oh yeah, they're like they're noticing me. They're noticing my mood, and that's a good feeling. Another part of our role is to just help them build coping skills, um, uh, for emotional regulation, um, and and other kind of skills, that ability to kind of set to kind of experience yourself as separate from your partner and notice that they're having their own experience that might be different than yours. And so building coping skills for that, like that can actually bring up fear, right? To realize like, oh, my partner has this whole other internal life that I'm not part of. For some people, that brings up some insecurity feelings. And then in addition, another skill that's really important is to help them learn how to talk about hard things. And those are related, right? Because talking about hard things is often, I'm talking about something that I know you have a really different experience of than I do. And I really want to be heard about it, even if it's hard for you to hear, or even if you don't you don't think of it that way, um, or whatever. So to do that, I like to really like slow the process down and slow down their kind of automatic reactions so that they can focus on how they feel about it instead, and so that they can focus um, on hearing the information that's there, and not being just reactive to the information, but like taking in the information, being able to digest and process it before responding. Um, so some of the times that looks like kind of pulling them out of the reactivity and into the moment, um, stuff like that. So sometimes with couples, I guess this isn't all just about first sessions, but in general with couples, sometimes people don't necessarily um, oh, as part of the check-in, by the way, or after the check-in, then I'll say, is either of you coming with something that you want to talk about today? And sometimes they've thought about it or talked about it. Sometimes a lot of my couples are like, no, not, or nothing in particular, or they'll say like, yeah, we had this upset and I think it'd be good to talk about. Um, when couples want to talk about an upset, this is kind of later in my notes, but um, yeah, um, when couples want to talk about an upset, I almost always will have them talk about what happened from their partner's point of view, again, with the same intention as earlier, right? So, from your partner's point of view, what happened? What was upsetting about it? What was going on for them when that happened? How did they feel? How did they respond? What came up for them? And I think it's hard for people. So I mean, I think it's often really hard for people, but I think every time I've done that, the other partner has been like, oh, they were actually listening, or they did actually know why that was hard for me. And that in and of itself can be really healing. Like sometimes that's all it takes is for them to just each feel heard and understood about what their reaction was. So I might do that. I often do that. I'll have one person share. I'll ask the other person, is there anything you want to change or add? And then I'll say, like, what was it like to hear them kind of, for the most part, know what that was like for you? Oh, yeah, okay. And then I'll change places and I'll ask that partner to say what was going on for the other partner. And same thing, is there anything you would change or add? And what was it like to hear that, to have them pretty much get it right. And then I might bring the focus to the pattern in it. So instead of focusing on the content and the story of what happened, or doing any kind of like refereeing or mediating or anything like that, I might point out the pattern that I noticed I'll kind of put it in pattern language. Like, okay, so what I'm hearing is so and so did this, and seems like what happened for you is this insecurity came up, and then and then and then you kind of said something hurtful, like maybe just to try to like feel more secure or get a reaction from them. Does that sound right? And we'll talk about it more in terms of the pattern. Um, Another thing that I try to train couples to do is when they're so this is about trying to teach them to differentiate between the facts and their interpretation. And when they're talking about somebody else, in particular their partner, to talk about them factually, right? So instead of um, you came home late because you didn't even care that I was waiting for you. You didn't even care that I was waiting for you is an interpretation, right? That's like mind reading. That's I'm assuming what you're thinking. And factual would be you came home later than you said you would, and you didn't um, let me know that you were going to be late. That's factual. So I do a lot of, especially when we're in a certain process, I will, um, but when we're being really mindful about communication, I'm going to talk later about the initiator inquirer, for example. I really try to train people to like to say anytime they say you to like to be factual about what they're saying. And I point out that when if they don't, if they say you felt this or you did this or you always whatever, then the other person's like total reaction is always going to be like, wait, like did I do that? And they're in their head going like, I don't think so. I don't agree with that. That's not how I see it. Da, 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 da. Instead of listening to what you're saying, like totally makes it difficult for them to hear what you're saying. So, helping couples be factual and helping people understand understand when they have a story about something or when they're making an interpretation, and try to own that and try to get better about that, because that's a it's a relationship injury right there. Um, Okay, another way that I am constantly kind of helping couples learn to hear each other better is by reflecting what I hear them saying in session, and I reflect it with an emphasis on the bid for connection, on the attachment desire, or on the kind of the vulnerability that they're feeling. So let me see if I can think of an example of this. So like a a all right, let's see. Um Someone might say like you're always coming home late and you don't even care about that I am home waiting for you, and I want to make plans too, but you're just out there doing whatever you want without thinking about me, something like that. I might reflect back something more like it sounds like you're feeling kind of lonely in the evenings, and you're wondering if your partner cares about you or not. I don't know if that's a perfect example, but see how I'm not talking about the story about always, never, late, doesn't care, all that. I'm reflecting it in terms of the story. Like I might say something like, um, it sounds like you're feeling kind of lonely in the evenings. I'm not even sure that's what I would say, but it sounds like you're feeling kind of lonely in the evenings. And your story is that your partner doesn't care about you. So I'm giving them the language of calling it story, um, giving them that language in how I'm reflecting it back to them. But I'm also validating and empathizing at the same time, right? Like even giving the word lonely, or um I might say something like, oh, that sounds really hard when you're just at home not knowing what's going on, and you're kind of developing the story that your partner doesn't care about you. That sounds really painful. All those are like they're bringing the focus back to the person who shared. They're keeping it kind of more factual, more like this is what's really happening, and it's giving them language that is them kind of owning what's going on inside of them, instead of projecting it onto their partner. Okay, let's see what else. New message. Okay. I'm gonna check my text that just came in. I will be right back. Okay. So some of the things that you're trying to help them see more clearly overall in the overarching way in um in couples therapy is the processes and patterns involved in how they are reacting to each other, what kinds of things trigger them, and maybe investigating like why that's such a trigger, maybe helping them get more conscious about it, maybe helping them see it differently, um, get factual information from their partner that might help them interpret the trigger differently, stuff like that. I also want them to notice what they're doing well, what they're bringing to the partnership, what they're appreciated for, what skills that they already have, and what they need to work on, in their relationship to be a better partner. Of course, this is always easier when a couple shows up and they both, to some extent, like want to be a better partner and want to work on things and want to learn and grow. So that's always ideal. Um, Sometimes that's not true, and I can talk more about that later.